Hello everyone, I am Medha Mathur, Domain Head of Competitive Programming. So today you're going to learn how to get started with competitive programming. Let us begin the session. Firstly, what exactly is competitive programming? So it is a mind sport that involves participants trying to write source codes for given problem statements with provided specifications and constraints of time, memory, etc. And your speed of writing your code also matters. So it is recognized by several multinational software companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, which actually use this as a method of recruitment. Competitive programming prepares you to be an efficient programmer with good logical ability, enabling you to be able to write code for any challenging situation. So, to get started with it, you need to know what programming languages you have to use. So the most commonly used are Python, C++, Java. There are others too like JavaScript, C, etc. But Python is efficient and it's very quicker to write. C++ though is a very fast compiling software. Java is used because of its really good way of implementing vectors and things like that. So it is, according to me, it's better to have knowledge of Python and C++ because Python will enable you to write a very quicker and shorter code. But in case your Python code gives you a time limit exceeded sort of an error, you can convert that into a C++ because it's always going to be really fast. So we're going to be learning with Python. So let us begin. So the most important term that you should know for competitive programming is time complexity and space complexity. So let us know what these are. Time complexity, it is the amount of time required by an algorithm to execute till completion. So let us take an example. On the left side, as you can see the first snippet, here we have one for loop that's running from 0 to n minus 1. So it is running n times. It's going to run the inner statement given inside the loop for n times. So that means my total running time of this entire loop is proportional to n. So the time complexity of this would be represented as capital O in bracket n. The time complexity is generally denoted by capital O, generally known as big O notation. So for the first snippet, since its running time is proportional to n, my time complexity is O in bracket n. For the second code snippet on the left side, here we have two for loops. The outer one which is running n times and the inner one runs n time for each execution of the outer loop. So in total we are actually running it n into n times. So my running time is proportional to n square and thus my time complexity is O in bracket n square, which is a really large time complexity. So the first one was a linear type of time complexity. The other one that we saw is a quadratic type of time complexity. Let's now see what space complexity is. So the amount of memory space that is needed by your algorithm in its entire life cycle or your program in its entire life cycle is known as space complexity. So basically it's your variables which actually occupy some memory. So let's consider the code snippet towards the right. In this, we have an array. Suppose take the array length as n. It is an integer array and we know that integer occupies 4 bytes of space. So an array of length n would occupy 4 into n bytes of space. Then we have other variables like n, x and I and the return statement itself which are all integers. So they'll all occupy 4 bytes themselves. So a total memory requirement of 4n plus 12 is required, but we actually see that this entire time complexity that we got is actually proportional to n. So this is a linear type of space complexity that we have. Alright, so while competitively programming, it is highly essential to write a very optimal code, and a code is said to be optimal if it is time efficient and space efficient. Alright, so let's continue. So today we're going to be starting with some actual coding and how to get started with this. So we're going to be using a platform known as HackerRank. There are other platforms too, like LeetCode, HackerEarth, etc. But we're going to be using this because of its user-friendly interface. So I would want you all to log on to HackerRank and sign up. If you don't have an account, sign up. If you have one, log in with it. Log in as a developer. This will be over here. Over here it's written for developers. So over here click sign up and code, and I will give you a minute. Just please sign up. If you have signed up or logged in, just drop a yes in the comment section. Okay, so I hope you've all signed up to it. Let's start. So firstly, I'm going to show you a demo problem to see how exactly the problem is to be interpreted and executed. Alright, cool. So there'll be a link in the chat box or in the description also, I think. Just click on that. Right. Okay. So this is how a platform like HackerRank or any other similar platform like HackerRank would look. So in the first over here we have a problem definition or a problem statement. It will help you understand what exactly the problem that we have to solve is and what exactly is expected from us. Alright. So let us read. It says Alice and Bob each created one problem for HackerRank. A reviewer rates the two challenges, awarding points on a scale from 1 to 100 for three categories: problem clarity, originality, and difficulty. The rating of Alice's challenge is the triplet A at 0, A at 1, A at 2, and the rating for Bob's challenge is the triplet B, that is B at 0, B at 1, B at 2. The task is to find their comparison points by comparing A at 0 with B at 0, A at 1 with B at 1, A at 2 with B at 2. So if my at a particular index, if the value from my first array, that is A, is greater than that of the second array B, then Alice is awarded a point. Vice versa, Bob is awarded a point. If it's equal, then neither person receives a point. So comparison points is the total points a person earned. Given A and B, determine their respective comparisons. Alright, so here they have given us a gist about what the exact problem is and what we actually need to do. Here is an example given below that to help you for better understanding. So here we have, they have taken in the array A the values 1, 2 and 3. The A array represents Alice's scores that she has been given, and B represents Bob's scores which he has given, so that is 3, 2, 1. So now if we compare the elements at particular index, so if we compare the A and B at 0th index, it is 1 and 3, and since 3 is greater, so it belongs to Bob's array, so Bob is going to be awarded a point. In the second case, the both are equal, it's 2 and 2, so neither will be awarded a point. And in the third case, since Alice's marks are greater or ratings are greater than that of Bob, she will be awarded a point. So in the end, it is saying that we need to return an array. This is an important statement. We don't need to print, we need to return, and we need to return an array 1, 1 with Alice's score first and Bob's second. So since this is a practice problem, it'll give you a function description over here because you don't need to worry about the input and output over here because HackerRank will already have taken care of it. with respect to these practice problems. But what you need to be doing is complete the function compare triplets in the editor below. So you have a function, and compare triplets has the following parameter. It's going to take two parameters, which will be the Alice's talent rating and Bob's talent rating. So two arrays it's going to take as input. And what is it going to return? The function is going to return an integer array of size 2, in which there's Alice's score in the first position and Bob's score in the second position. Now, the important thing that you guys need to notice is the input format, the output format, the constraints that are given. Your code will not get successfully executed or accepted if you've not taken your input or output based on the format given. So like it says over here, my first line contains three space separated integers a0, a1 and a2, the respective values in triplet A. So it says the first line will contain three space separated integers, as you can see in the sample output, and these are actually Alice's ratings, the three ratings of Alice. And it says second line contains three space separated integers, which are the Bob's ratings. We have a constraint. It says that Alice can give a rating between 1 to 100 and Bob can give a rating between 1 to 100. Alright, and this is how the output should actually be. It is an array. So you can see an explanation over here. They have taken A and B based on the input that has been given. They have compared and gotten Alice's comparison score and Bob's comparison score. Alright, so there's another sample input and output given just for your better understanding. So this is how an actual problem looks like. You need to understand what is being asked of you, what you actually need to do, and the exact format. If it says in the first line you have to take one integer as input, then your code must do that only. It should not take all inputs in one line or go against the input format or the output format. Alright. So this is what the editor will look like. Over here from this drop down you can actually choose what language you're going to code in. So I'm going to take Python 3. So here it says complete the compare triplets function below. As it had said above, my compare triplets function is taking two parameters. It's got an array A and an array B. So array A will contain the three ratings which Alice has given, and array B will contain three ratings which Bob has given. Alright, so let's start to code. So a very basic thing would be, a very simple solution for this would be that we loop through this entire Alice's array or probably and Bob's array and compare at each index whatever we are going to get the values. And if A, the first value which is in A is greater, then we give Alice a point. If B is the one element in B is greater, then we give Bob a point, or else we don't give a point, and in the end we return an array. So let us code that. So I'm gonna first give something like Alice score over here, initially 0. I'm gonna have a Bob score which is also initially 0. Alright, so now I'm gonna loop for x comma y in zip a comma b. Now you must be wondering what this zip function is. So this is actually a predefined function in Python. What it actually does is you're giving two lists or two arrays into it. So what it does is actually it returns a tuple, an iterable tuple. It actually pairs the first values of A and B into one, then the second values of A and B as one. So it will pair those things together and give you a tuple in return through which you can iterate. Alright, and I am going to assume that x will be whatever the element I get for A, and y will be whatever element I get for B. Cool. Alright, so let us continue. Okay, so here we have taken X as what will refer to the element from my A array, and Y will be my element from B array. So now we're going to keep checking that if my X value, which is from Alice's array, is greater than Y, which is from the same at that position element from Bob's array, then we will increment Alice's score else if my Bob's rating at a certain index is greater than that of Alice's, then we're gonna increment Bob's score. Alright, so this will be my loop that's running, and in the end it was said that I am supposed to return an array which consists of my Alice's score and Bob's score. Cool. So this is what a general program would look like, a normal simple approach, a naive approach to the problem. So as you can see, I've got like one array, one for loop. So it's gonna run the length of the A array or the B array, which is actually 3. So this is actually proportional to n. Suppose my length of an array is n. So currently over here, the time complexity for this would be n. And since we're actually using so many variables over here, x, y, Alice's score, Bob's score, and then we are going to use 2 more arrays over here, there's really high space complexity as well. Alright, so once you've written this code, click run code over here. Oh, I guess I'm not logged in. Just give me a minute. Okay, so now let us run this code and see. So if I click on one code, look, it's passed the sample test cases. Here you can see the input and the output that it expects and what your output is, so it's matching what needs to be done. So these test cases in which you can actually see the input and output are known as public test cases. But when you click on submit, your code needs to pass these other logged test cases, also known as private test cases. So you won't be able to see the input values that have been given into it or what the expected output for this is, but your code will get successful and you will get a ranking onto some sort of competition that you're participating in, only and only if your code satisfied both the public test cases and the private test cases. Cool. So this was one solution that we got, but can you see how many lines of code we have written? So like if you're actually participating in a competition like Google Kickstart, what actually matters is also the time you spend on your current problem, the time you spend in writing the code. It'll give you a penalty for a greater amount of time that you've taken, hence giving you a lower rank. So what I would be doing in this case, let's see. So okay, so I'll be using 2 things over here. Just let me write it and then I'll tell you. Cool. So what I have used over here is three things. Firstly, I have used two inbuilt functions. There's the sum function and there's the zip function. So what the sum function actually does, if you pass a list or a dictionary or something into the round brackets of sum, it will sum all the elements of that array, all the elements of that list, or all the elements of that dictionary, and return you a summation of it all. So, and as I've told you before of zip, it actually returns an iterable tuple by matching the elements at that particular index. So this what I have written is actually known as list comprehension. So instead of writing many lines, like you're writing a for loop line and then within it you're checking that particular thing, you're actually writing it as a one line code. So what exactly is list comprehension? So first you give your condition against which you're checking, and then you write the for loop or the iteration that you're using. So here we are actually saying that my x comma y in zip a comma b. So I am saying that I have this a comma b iterable tuple, and we want them to be present in x and y variables. My x will be my element from a and y will be my element from b. So it will iterate over here, and it will keep checking if x is greater than y. So what have we used here? We have used a conditional operator. So what does a conditional operator do? It returns a 1 if my value is true, and it returns a 0 if the value is false. So in this case, since I said this was a list comprehension, a list is nothing but a type of array. You can say in arrays in Python. Alright. So what this does, if my value of x is greater than y, it's going to append or add the value 1 into a temporary list that it is creating. If x is not greater than y, or if it's equal, it's going to put a value of 0 into that list. So what will happen is, in the end, I'm like supposingly, let's assume this way. Over here I'm gonna get a list that will contain value like 1 0 1. I'm assuming that in the first case the condition was true, in the second the condition was not true, and in the third it was true, or something like that. Alright, so this is what it will have. So this is a list, and then we're doing a summation of this list. So when you sum this entire thing, you're actually getting Alice's score. Similarly, I've done it for Bob too, but in this case the value of y, which represents the element from Bob's array, is what should be greater than x. So you've written a one-liner code for Alice's score and Bob's score instead of writing an entire loop. So this is gonna take you lesser time to type and write down, and then you can return Alice's score and Bob's score. Cool. So let us run this code and see. Okay, as you can see, we've successfully run this. Our public test cases say that it is successful. Now if you write submit, well, even our private test cases are successful. Alright, so with this, I think you guys have an idea of how to interpret a question, how exactly we found out what we need to do. We need to only complete this function and return a value, return an array. So you need to be specific about whatever is given here and understand what is being asked of you to satisfy your problem's needs. Alright. Okay, so I think you can try for yourself and explore this platform of HackerRank, so that you as an individual can also understand how this entire thing works. And I want you to implement a few things on your own so that you get an idea of like how I implemented today, and slowly as you practice you'll be understanding how to write your code in a quicker way. Cool. So the next topic that we're going to cover now is why do we need data structures and algorithms for competitive programming. So here we've considered a program, say, for sorting an array. So on my left side, I've used a neighbor approach. That's a simpler approach that we use. That when we use two loops. The outer loop is actually moving through the entire array, and the inner loop will again move through the end, like at an index +1 till the end of the array. So what we are actually doing in this, we are just comparing adjacent elements and or comparing one element with the rest of the elements in the array. So this is going to be a really long process. And the worst case, so suppose in over here, if I'm considering the 0th index, so my outer loop is like 0 to, suppose n is the length of the array, so it's writing n times, and my inner loop will go from 1 to n, so another like n times. Alright, so overall, in the worst case, what are we doing? We're running the loop like n into n times, which is a really big number. Because come on, if you have like 5 to 10 elements, it works. But supposingly you have like 1,00,000 elements that you need to sort, an array of 1,00,000 elements that you need to sort. Alright, so then what do you actually do? For that reason, we have a data structure known as merge sort. I mean an algorithm, sorry, known as merge sort. So what this does is it actually takes an array, finds out a mid position, divides that array into two, and then further divides those arrays by taking a middle position into half and half and half until you get individual elements. And once it gets these individual elements, it's going to merge them one by one in a sorted order. So the time complexity for this sort of algorithm, in the best, average or worst case, is always n log n. So log n is a value that is fractional and it is generally less than 1. So my n log n would be at a maximum n, the value of n log n would be maximum n or less than n, which is a very less time complexity as compared to the naive approach that we used. So this is why actually use DSA for competitive programming. You will be learning a lot more in the further sessions, so you'll be able to understand where I can use certain topics and thus overall make your program optimal in the end. Alright, so now that we've cleared that, I have a challenge for you guys today. Alright, so here's the link for it. Just give me a minute. Let me just Alright, so I want you guys to click on this link and you'll be open up to a page like this. I want you to sign up for this and you guys have approximately 15 minutes. Alright, there's one problem given in there and I would like all of you to be able to solve this. Alright, and then we're gonna see who's got a more efficient code in general. Alright, and then I'll probably also show you how I would have done the problem. Alright, so I'm gonna give you 15 minutes now and you can enter the contest. Alright, your time starts now. Go ahead. While you guys are at it, I'm gonna give you a brief detail about what all competitions are there out in the world. Like I said earlier, Google itself organizes a few ones. Like a very popular one would be Google Kickstart. So it happens on an international level. You'll be given a particular time period. It's generally a 3 hour time period. You will have like 4 problems to solve of increasing difficulty level, and there'll be like scoring or marking based on how well you have solved a problem, like how fast you have done it, is how efficient your code is in general, and on that basis you'll have your ranking on the entire leaderboard. And the worst part about it that I think is the penalty rating. It is really tough, because even though you've written like a very successful code, but if a person above you has written it in like less than a minute or something, and you've taken like 2-3 minutes, you're gonna have a ranking way too low as compared to that person. So it is very necessary to be able to not only write a code that is time efficient and space efficient, but also that is really quick to write, which is why I always use Python, because as you saw in the example that I used, instead of writing like 4 to 5 lines, I just wrote a one-liner code. Apart from that, one very popular competitive programming thing is TCS Code Beta. I'm sure everyone knows about this, and it happens every year. TCS actually uses this as an opportunity to recruit people. This is also on an international scale. In this, you have like 6 problems to solve, and you've been given like 6 hours on a stretch. So it's like continuous. You cannot stop or pause in between in case of competitive programming. Yeah, so it's on a similar basis, and having the knowledge of data structures and algorithms and always helps, because a code that you think will be a very time efficient one, there'll always be a code with data structures or algorithm of some kind that is going to be way more efficient than the one that you've written. Similar to Google and TCS, Amazon, Microsoft also use this method for recruitment. So actually, what happens is when you are at a technical interview, um, they will ask you to, they'll give you a problem at hand at the point and ask you to write an efficient code with it. So you must know that how to approach a problem. The most simplest way I feel is first you come up with a naive solution in your mind, which is a very layman solution that you'll get. So once you found that out, figure out in the code which is the part that is actually taking a lot of time in terms of time complexity or space complexity. Like if you have a lot many loops in it, that is generally what results in large amount of time to be taken. But apart from that, uh, you can actually what you can do is figure that part out and figure out if there is a way I can convert it into a one-liner code. Is there a way I can actually write it in a shorter method, or use some sort of logic apart from general logic that you've used? So derive that logic from the actual naive logic that you have. So you'll be learning about these as and when you keep solving further problems with time. And this is a skill that is not learned over a short period of time. You need to be continuously practicing for you to become an efficient programmer and actually be able to ace your competitive programming competitions or challenges or anything in general. So if you're having trouble in understanding a problem at a certain point, like sometimes there's a huge paragraph given and you start from the starting, and by the time you reach the end of it, you're like utterly confused as to what is exactly asked, right? So what I do is in this type of situation is I go through the examples or the inputs that given. So then based on that I try to reflect back on what the actual statement is, because the first para that they give where they're actually describing the problem is not always straightforward. It'll be in the format to help confuse you, but you need to understand based on the type of inputs and outputs that are given, how exactly, what exactly do you deal with this particular thing. So So I want you guys to try this particular problem out. It's okay if you're not able to solve like all test cases or anything. It's just a way to help you understand the platform, because I will be showing you what all solutions there are possible for this problem at the end. But I would recommend, if it'll be great if you actually try to figure out why your program is giving only one test case complete and why not the other. Maybe there's some problem in your logic, or maybe there's some printing format that you have made an error in. Just go through it again. You still have a little bit of time, so it'll be great if you guys are able to do it. Otherwise, it's all fine. It's a first time trial thing, and of course, I'll be helping you out in the end of how this actually is to be done. All right. I think that'll be it. I am hoping all of you have done like how you have enjoyed like actually competing on a certain level. So I'm going to be showing you what can be the solution for this. So let's start by reading the problem. So we are given 5 positive integers. Find the minimum and maximum values that can be calculated by summing exactly 4 of the 5 integers. Then print the respective minimum and maximum values as a single line of two space separated long integers. So here we are given an example, like we have an array 1 3 5 7 9. So of course the minimum sum over here is 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7, which is 16, and the maximum they are saying is 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9, which is 24. So the function will print 16 space 24, where 16 is my minimum and 24 is my maximum value. So as you can see over here, it's saying that you need to actually complete only a function in this and not actually worry about the input and output. So we have a function mini max sum. It will take one parameter, which will be an array of 5 integers, and you need to print two space separated integers on one line, the minimum sum and the maximum sum of the 4 out of 5 elements. Alright, so it's given here that the input format is one single line which contains of 5 space separated integer, which is actually my array. And here the constraint, my array element at a particular array can have a value from 1 to 10 raised to 9, so it can be a really huge value too. Alright, so output is two space separated long integers denoting respective minimum and maximum values that can be calculated by summing exactly 4 of the 5 integers. The output can be greater than a 32-bit integer. Cool. So here what they have done in the explanation, as you can see, they have not taken 1, then they have calculated the other number sum, they've got 14, then they have not taken 2 and then calculated the other elements, they've got 13, and so on for each element. And out of this they have chosen that my minimum value is 10 and my maximum value is 14. So this is one solution. This is a naive solution, you could say. So what happens in this is that you're actually looping the entire array like one time to go from the first element to the last, and the other time you're looping that for that particular index or element. We're not apart from that particular index, add all the other ones. So this is gonna take a very long time to run, because if you're using 2 for loops or something that big, it's not gonna be very time efficient. So what I'm going to be doing is giving you a very simple solution. Alright, let's consider this array as you can see over here, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now you tell me that suppose if I remove the largest element from this array, 9. So I've got all elements that will be the smaller numbers. So if I add all these numbers, what am I getting? I'm getting the most minimum sum. Now if I remove 1, which is the minimum element from my array, I am adding the rest of the elements, which is actually the larger numbers, all the larger numbers in the array. So if you're adding all large numbers in the array, you're going to get the maximum sum. So all I have done is I'm going to consider a variable min sum. Alright, and how am I going to calculate this? I'm going to first say that calculate the entire sum of my array that I have and remove my maximum element out of it, max of this array. So max is also like a predefined function in Python. Alright, and my max sum would be nothing but my sum of the entire array minus my minimum element of that array. So like you can see in the example given below also, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So suppose I remove 5, I'm going to get a sum of 1, 2, 3 and 4. If you see over here, my sum of 1, 2, 3 and 4 is actually my minimum one, and if I remove 1, then I'm getting summation of 2, 3, 4, 5, which is nothing but 14, which is actually my maximum value. So out of the entire sum, if you remove the maximum number, you're gonna get all the minimum numbers. So it's gonna be sum of that will be a minimum, and similar vice versa. If you remove the maximum value, if you remove the minimum value, you're gonna get all the larger numbers, and its sum is gonna be a max. All right. So what is it saying? After this, I have to print two space separated integers. All right. So I'm just gonna write a print, and in bracket min sum comma max. Cool. Let us run this. Wow, look at that. We have passed our two public test cases where the values, one of the values is also 8974, so which is great. So now that we have passed the public test cases, let's submit the code and see if we have actually passed the private test cases too. Oh, look at that. I've managed to pass all 14 test cases that are given. So the test cases that was shown to us were only 2. So the 2 were public and the rest are private test cases. So I'm hoping all you guys understood how to actually deal with the environment and how to be able to read and understand a problem. It's okay if you don't, because it's at the start. Once you keep doing and practicing slowly and steadily, you're going to understand. All right, so let us see the leaderboard. I'm just going to see the leaderboard and I'm going to figure out who has the winner. Alright, so according to the leaderboard, I have got one name. I think his name is Harsh Vivek, and he has submitted the code in 2 minutes and 31 seconds. So that is great job there. So congratulations, you are the winner. The follow-up second and third would be, there's a Raghav underscore 81 underscore CSE underscore 17. Good job to you too. 4 minutes 41 seconds. And the third rank is Saujanya 0910. So great job. Well done, guys. I hope you will be practicing more and you'll be able to do better in the later on sessions. But that'll be all for today. Thank you for joining, and if you have any doubts, feel free to ping me on the Discord server. I will be answering your questions over there. I hope you enjoyed today's session. So goodbye until next time.